Happy Thursday and welcome to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. For the next 2 hours, we're going to get you caught up on everything you need to know across the sports landscape. I'll even put my headphones away. All right, Caroline, let's start this show like we start every show. 3 points. What's on your mind first, my friend?
News updates.
Hasn't been a whole lot of good news for Cincinnati Bengals fans recently, but finally a good nugget because Joe Burrow was a full participant at practice on Wednesday for the first time in over 2 months since he's been recovering from his turf toe injury. He has been sidelined from practice since September 14th, and he was a limited participant in practice last week, but as of yesterday, that was the first time that he was a full participant. So that begs the question. I know the Bengals have eyed Thanksgiving as a return for Joe Burrow, but could Joe Burrow return to gameplay as early as this weekend? Of course, Zach Taylor was asked that, and he said, quote, "Until we get through some practices, there's no reason for me to even speculate on that." So he's not shutting down the possibility or maybe even the probability that we could see Joe Burrow this weekend. Of course, Joe Flacco has been dealing with a shoulder injury. So could Joe Burrow step in and be the Bengals starting quarterback, or at least get some game work this weekend? That remains to be seen. If you'd ask me, though, I would say not a smart idea. Not a good call. The Bengals season is over. Sure, mathematically and statistically, the AFC North could be wide open. But the Bengals are sitting at 3-7. They have the Patriots this weekend, then they go to Baltimore, and then they go to Buffalo, then they get the Baltimore Ravens again. It's an uphill climb already for the Bengals sitting at 3-7. But with that schedule, it's going to be even more difficult. What's the point? What is the point for the Cincinnati Bengals to throw Joe Burrow out there 2 months removed from a turf toe injury? A quarterback that's been dealing with injuries his entire career. A quarterback that has been put behind a leaky offensive line at best, basically throughout the entirety of his career. What's the point of putting Joe Burrow, your star and your franchise quarterback, back out there when your season's basically already done? I don't get it. I wouldn't do it, but it's something to watch for the Bengals matchup against the Patriots this weekend.
Oh, you are so right. And it just screams to a coach that's coaching for his job, and he just wants to try and win games that have no consequence. All right, I'll get to my first point of the day now that I've thrown shade at the Bengals head coaching. I will throw I'll give everybody a little bit of college football insight you didn't need to know. Here I am yesterday just looking around the World Wide Web, and all of a sudden Dan Wolken puts an article up that blows my mind. You see it here. If Lane Kiffin leaves Ole Miss in the next couple of weeks, could the CFP committee snub the Rebels from the playoffs? Now, before you sit there and say, what? You got to check the article out because it will blow your mind when you start doing the math that gets you back to Florida State. Remember, a few years ago, Jordon Travis was the quarterback of an undefeated Florida State team that at the end of the regular season, we all thought was surely going to make the college football playoff. The problem is, without their starting quarterback, the College Football Playoff Committee took advantage of the opportunity that is in writing in the rules for the committee and what to consider, where the committee is told to consider all players that may or may not be available for the College Football Playoff. That was used as the reasonable justification to keep an undefeated Florida State team out of the playoffs. Simply put, without Jordan Travis, they probably weren't a playoff team. So the committee decided not to include them. Now, that was a smaller playoff process than we have now. But even now, in a 12-team playoff, I should remind everybody, as Dan Wolken smartly points out in his article, those same bylaws in writing give the committee the opportunity to consider leaving teams out because of coaching changes as well. Should any player or coach not be available, it can be factored in. That's where we cue the Ole Miss music and we ask ourselves, is Ole Miss a great football team, or is Ole Miss where they are because they believe that Lane Kiffin is the driving force behind it? Will the College Football Committee, should Lane Kiffin decide to take another job, would the committee then decide that an interim coach doesn't make Ole Miss deserving of a college football playoff spot? This may seem wild and crazy, but what have we been telling you for weeks? This is an eye test committee. They believe in what they see. So how much credit do they give Lane Kiffin, his schemes, his offense, the way he runs everything, the way he brings the roster together, the very things that make Lane a hot candidate for other schools? How much credit are they going to take away from Ole Miss if we are suddenly looking at an interim coaching situation? I'm not rooting for chaos, even though I love it. And I'm not rooting for these kids to be left out of the playoff through no fault of their own. But I do think that we need to factor into this entire Lane Kiffin conversation at least the possibility that change right now could lead to the committee deciding they value Ole Miss differently after Lane isn't the coach, should he take another job. All eyes will be on what coach decides to do and what it means for not just his new school, but also for Ole Miss. All right, Caroline, let's get to the top point of the day. And I love Prove It's. I love the opportunity for people to just shut narratives up. You say it all the time. Prove it to me, right? Like, prove me wrong is a Caroline Fentonism that I absolutely love. And we've got a massive Prove It game this weekend. We've got Prove It opportunities this weekend, including the Chiefs and the Colts. You want to talk about ultimate Prove It? Like, one team is trying to prove that they deserve to be in the elite conversation. The other is trying to prove that they deserve to still be in the playoff conversation. Who needs to prove it more, though?
We want proof. You can't handle the proof. That's what this weekend is in the NFL. I think that if you ask that question, maybe 99% of the football society would say the Colts need to prove it. The Colts need to prove that they're a Super Bowl contender because they need to beat a contender in order to be a contender. No, au contraire. On that one, I think the Chiefs need to do a whole lot more proving than the Indianapolis Colts have to prove. What more do the Colts need to prove to us? Daniel Jones has proven to us that he has been a reclamation project in the NFL this season. Hasn't done it in the postseason yet, but he's shown me enough that I can be a believer in Daniel Jones as a starting quarterback in Indianapolis. Jonathan Taylor has proven to us that he's putting together an MVP caliber season, that he is the best running back in the NFL this season. The Colts have proven to me that they are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. The Chiefs haven't proven me that this year. We know what we know about the Chiefs last year and the year prior and the year prior to that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce, that they are inevitable in the past. That's not what they've been this year. The Chiefs are 5-5. If the season ended today, and I know it doesn't, but if it did, the Chiefs would be on the outside looking in of the postseason. The Chiefs have only been, of the legitimate contenders in the NFL and that have been on the Chiefs schedule, the only legitimate contender that they've beaten is the Lions. And that's a very hot and cold type of team. Prove it to me. The Chiefs need to prove to me that they deserve the benefit of the doubt that we've been giving them, the benefit of the doubt that they've earned by what they've done in previous years. Prove it to me that that's who you are this year by beating a legitimate contender, because that's what the Colts are.
You're right, but I'm going to take the other 99% of the world and just talk about benefit of the doubt. Like, I feel like this point we should rename the Kansas City Chiefs to like the Kansas City Monty Python's. Like, there's an old movie, way older than you, Caroline, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And there's a scene in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Okay, right. There, he gets to the guard won't let him pass, and he just keeps like losing limbs, and he keeps saying, it's just a flesh wound. It's just over and over and over. It's just a flesh wound. That's what we do with the Kansas City Chiefs. No matter how many times it feels like they are left for dead, they're coming. The general population of people that cover the sport will continue to say, oh, they're not dead yet. It's just flesh wound. Chiefs are going to be fine. Chiefs can lose this game. And the question on Monday will be, are the Chiefs finally eliminated? And there will be plenty of people that say, no. In fact, no matter what happens on Sunday, through the course of it, there's going to be plenty of people that say you don't want to take on Mahomes in the playoffs, even though this is a 5-5. I'd like to take on a 5-5 team in the playoffs, but that's not what we're going to say. Look at what we just did to Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has a bad game suddenly or not Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has a bad game last week. We watched Sam Darnold. I'm getting all my quarterbacks confused. Sam Darnold last week has a bad game against the Rams, throws some picks, and we immediately turn around and say, oh, Sam Darnold sucks. If Daniel Jones comes in and has a bad game against the Chiefs, it won't be, oh, wow, good quarterback, had a bad game. It will be, this is why you can't trust Daniel Jones. This is why nobody wanted Daniel Jones. It's why you can't trust the Colts. Like, we are so ready to just take away the benefit of the doubt that the Colts have earned this year, that they have to prove it more, because frankly, everybody's going to be ready to give up on them every single week. If they even have a close game, we look around and say, are the Colts really that good? But for the Chiefs, they can lose by 3 touchdowns. And the question will be, well, what do the Chiefs need to fix by the playoffs? That's why I think there's more prove it here in this one, because I still think people are hesitant to believe in the Colts no matter how good they've been.
That's on them.
Wow.
I mean, like that is on them. And I do totally hear where you're coming from, that we're all just waiting to say, see, I told you so. We did that. You just mentioned Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold throws 4 picks against the Rams, and it's like, oh, that's the Sam Darnold that we always knew. I told you Sam Darnold still had that in him, when we all kind of already knew that Sam Darnold had that in him. So it didn't wildly change my perspective of who Sam Darnold is or what he can do, is that he's really good, but is good for a clunker every once in a while. And the Colts have shown us, or at least should have shown us throughout the span of the last 10 or 11 games, that this might just be who the Colts are. I don't know who the Chiefs are, though, Fitzy. But this isn't the only prove it game in the NFL going on this weekend. We've got a Yahoo Sports Daily Bowl between your beloved Raiders and our producer Mike Goldfarb's beloved Browns. It might be the toilet bowl, but it is beautiful to us. Shedeur Sanders will get the start, though.
I mean, is it beautiful to us? Look, Shedeur's got plenty to prove.
It is beautiful to us.
I think what we've seen.
She has a great personality.
Well, that is fair. Both of these teams have portions of them that have great personalities. You're right, but nobody wants to go on a second date with them. Unfortunately, we fell in love too fast, and now we can't stop ourselves. All right, my hurt is coming through this. The wild part about Shedeur, and when we talk about what there is to prove, look at the way the narrative has changed on the Cowboys over the course of the last few days. Like, look at the way that all of a sudden people are saying, "Oh, the Cowboys can win." Why? Because they took advantage of a terrible Raiders team. So now we spent the last week trying to debate stupid things that most of us have no context on, like how many snaps a backup quarterback should get with the ones. And by the way, credit to every backup quarterback and every guy that's been a journeyman quarterback that's gone to Twitter X to educate all of us. It's really been a beautiful thing to see actual information, not just people screaming into a microphone, actual information about how it works. Well, now we're going to get actual information about how Shedeur works, because this Raiders team has given up 200 or more yards passing to 90% of the quarterbacks they played this year. This Raiders defense has been able to got throwing the football. So if Shedeur can do the thing that people want Shedeur to do here, he should be able to have success. There is success to be had against the back end of a Raiders defense that is absolutely terrible. So, Caroline, there's plenty that Shedeur can prove in this game.
I think what Shedeur needs to prove, and you're right, this is the perfect opportunity. It's not always the perfect opportunity to be proving yourself against Max Crosby, but this Raiders team in its entirety, it's at least a good opportunity for Shedeur to prove that he can be a starting quarterback in this league. Like, I don't need Shedeur to pop off for 350 passing yards and 3 touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns. Like, I don't need Shedeur to do that. But what I need Shedeur to prove to me, and what I think Shedeur needs to prove to the NFL as a whole, is, look, I belong in the NFL. I can be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And what does that come? That comes in, getting the ball out faster, not taking as many sacks, proving that you have a good understanding of this offense and can execute this offense at least, a kind of a surface level. I don't need him to do anything extra fancy, but what I need Shedeur to not do is not take the bad sacks, not hold on to the ball for too long. At least give his receivers an opportunity to make a play on the ball. Because Shedeur might not get that many chances to prove that he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL. That's not exclusive to Shedeur. I don't know how many 5th-round picks get multiple opportunities to prove to NFL GMs and coaches out there everywhere that, hey, I can be the savior for a franchise, or I can come in and win you a few games. We've had several kind of renaissance and reclamation projects in the NFL, but how many years did it take Geno Smith to get a 2nd or 3rd opportunity? Well, like 6 or 7 years. How many years did it take Sam Darnold to get a second chance in the NFL? How many years did it take Baker Mayfield to get a second chance in the NFL? And we're talking about the number 1 overall pick. You don't get that many cracks at it in the NFL. You don't get very many opportunities to prove that, hey, I belong here. I belong in this league. So I think Shedeur needs to prove that this weekend. Prove that you can be a starting quarterback in the NFL.
He needs to process things faster. We need to see him get rid of the ball faster. To your point, if he holds the ball for a long time or thinks about what he's going to do, Max is going to feast in this game. There's no doubt. But I will remind everybody, again, Marcus Mariota beat the snot out of this Raiders defense. Cam Ward, in a game that the Titans lost, was 26 of 38 for 222 yards against this Raiders defense. I would argue, frankly, Caroline, that Shedeur could look like a capable starter, and it doesn't mean he's a capable starter. This Raiders defense is just not good. This Raiders team is not good. So to me, it's not like if he goes out and he looks terrible, that's the most concerning thing in the world. If he goes out and it looks okay, I just think that's a Band-Aid. And I'm not trying to have some moving target. I just think that what we have to start to acknowledge, and that's why I've been consistent with the Cowboys too. Like the Cowboys won last week and their offense looked really good last week. The Raiders are trash. Like the Raiders are very, very, very bad. So I just think that at some point we have to remind ourselves that knowing that this team is so bad and Shedeur is taking them on, I don't think that even if Shedeur goes out and has a great game, it doesn't mean everything's fixed with Shedeur. If he goes out and he plays terribly, that's a concern to me because this is the worst defense he could possibly face, I think, moving forward. And I will say, like, as somebody that loves this team, this just feels like it's going to be a awful. Like both of these teams are going to struggle to score points, right? So the other part of this is that Shedeur's going to have to be a little patient. This feels like the low-scoring, ugly sort of football game where Shedeur's going to have to take what's there and just let the defense give it up and just ease his way down the field and try and be smart and calculated in his decisions.
I think the best thing for Shedeur is because this game is going to be gross. It's going to be ugly. And I'm so sorry, Fitzy, but that is the truth. The best thing for Shedeur is that this game is so gross and so ugly that it's beautiful. Like the Steelers Bengals game that we got several weeks ago on Thursday Night Football, like that game was disgusting, but it was so fun to watch because it was just, two 40-year-old quarterbacks slinging it, and it was the first one to 35 would win. I think that's the best case scenario is if it's a high-scoring, gross kind of affair, because then that shows that Shedeur Sanders can operate this offense to a certain level that they can actually score. We didn't see that last week, and when he came in relief of Dylan Gabriel, it was like, my goodness, can this guy even move the ball downfield? My goodness, is this guy going to get some of the Browns receivers in the hospital? So maybe best case scenario is that it's so gross that it's good.
Final score on this will be it'll be 11-3. The Browns win based on short fields from turnovers. The two teams combined will have less yards than one normal offense has in the course of the season. And I think
how do we get to
safely
11?
Say 11, we get 3 touchdowns or 3 field goals and a safety is how we get to 11. Like
that's
3, 6, 9, and
disgusting.
A safety. Like there won't be a touchdown in this game. It's 11-3, short fields the whole way. My question is, will Myles Garrett and Max Crosby combine for more sacks than there are first downs in this game? And I think there's a real chance at it. That's how ugly it's going to be. We'll keep breaking down. Speaking of Myles Garrett, we got some interesting Myles Garrett info coming at you later in the show. But coming up next, for all of that drama, we have the Drama Bowl coming up. The Eagles taking on the Cowboys. Both teams, narrative makers. We'll figure out what to make of it. Oh, remember this? For the first time since week 1, I'd say that there's a spitting chance we get a good football game out of this. Look at me bringing Spitgate back. You get a spit, I get a spit, everybody gets a spit. We got the Eagles taking on the Cowboys. We're on one. Spitgate feels like it was a lifetime ago. There was drama then. There's drama now. It just feels like there's drama everywhere. The Eagles, though, Caroline, we've talked a lot about this, and I want to say it loudly. The Eagles are the defending Super Bowl champion. The Philadelphia Eagles have lost 2 games all year. And we spend every week talking about them like they're the Raiders and the Browns. We spend every week talking about this team being broken like, I don't know, they're the Chiefs. We spend every week talking about this team like they live in the sea of suck, and they're 8-2. I just want to point that out. So if they beat the Cowboys at 8-2, if they go to 9-2, what's it mean for the Eagles?
Business as usual. It just means that the Eagles, who Frank has power ranked as number 1 in the NFL, which I disagree with, but whatever, it's Frank's game. We just play along. But I mean, he's not wrong, and he's not the only one. I would say if you looked at a million different power rankings across the NFL, majority of them probably have the reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles at the top spot in the league. So if the Eagles beat the Cowboys, and that is business as usual for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles beat up on a team that's below 500 right now. I know it's the Dallas Cowboys. I get that. I understand that. Now all of us are riding high on the Cowboys after beating up on a bad Raiders team, sorry, Fitz, on Monday Night Football. But if the Philadelphia Eagles at 8-2 beat the Dallas Cowboys sitting at 4-5-1, well, that's just the Eagles taking care of business against a flawed team.
I love to play the game where I give you a team and we scream sucks afterwards to remind you how bad a schedule has been. I want to just acknowledge the opposite for a second here. When we say that the Eagles are 8-2, I want to remind everybody they already beat this Cowboys team. It's a good team, right? They beat the Chiefs. They beat the Rams.
Good
they beat
team
the
is
Bucks.
maybe.
I mean, well, okay, but still, they beat the Chiefs, the Rams, the Bucks. They beat the Lions. They beat the Packers. Like, these are all quality wins. They are 8-2, and their 2 losses is a freak loss to the Broncos that will never make sense of what happened at the end of that, and a weird loss to the Giants. Okay. Like that's 2 weird losses here. I'll give you that they have a couple of weird losses, but weird, like the way we talk about, to your point, Caroline, yeah, all they did was put up 16 points against the Lions, and that's not good enough. Well, they only gave up 9. Now, I realize this is going to be strength on strength. The Cowboys offense against the Eagles defense is truly going to be the chess match, and it will be interesting to see if the Eagles offense can go blow to blow if they need to in a high-scoring game. I'm concerned in the playoffs if they get into a game where the defense is having an off day, can the offense produce enough points to actually win? That's a really fair conversation. We just won't learn that in this game. Like, we're not going to learn that until we get into January. So to your point, I think the biggest thing that everybody now needs to be looking at isn't just, are the Eagles going to win these football games? It's, are the Eagles just going to quietly ride their dysfunction all the way to the 1 seed and home field advantage in the playoffs? Because it certainly feels like they can, they should, and frankly, they will. The rest of their schedule is far easier than anything they've played so far. There's no reason in my mind that the Eagles can't finish this thing out, this regular season out at 15-2. And it's just like the Chiefs last year. We spent all year last year just complaining about the Chiefs and how much they sucked. And they went 15-2 and went to the Super Bowl.
I would say the one thing that I think maybe we can learn about this Eagles team is the status of Lane Johnson. We learned that he has the Linz Frank injury. That's something that I think is big and impactful for an Eagles team that obviously the tush push is such a massive part of what they do. Why is the tush push so effective? Or part of the reason why the tush push is so effective is because the Eagles have the best offensive line in football, and Lane Johnson is one of the best in the league. So I think that'll be interesting, especially going up against a Cowboys defensive line that looked improved against the Raiders, but also I will always say, okay, is it improved or are you just playing the Raiders? Again, I'm so sorry, Fitzy, but the Raiders offensive line is truly doo-doo. So is the Cowboys defensive line really that much improved at the trade deadline, or is it just the Raiders?
I had a smart person yesterday in a conversation tell me that he's never seen left to right worse offensive line, and that none of those players playing for the Raiders should be starting in the NFL. Like that's just actual analysis from somebody that's covering the sport, right? And so I just think that has to be
hard to do,
right? Like Oh, right. And so let's see what it looks like when you're actually taking on a real football team. Now, what about the other side of those? Like, look,
Mhm.
you say it all the time. I love it. Prove me wrong. Cowboys, prove me wrong.
Yeah.
If the Cowboys go out and win this game, if this is a resurgent defense that's now healthy and Quinnen and Kenny Clark next to each other, this internal thing that nobody can figure out, and it's this great disruptor, and the offense continues to look spectacular. All right, I will be the first to come in Monday and just eat my crow, right? I'll come in and we'll find a way to cook it and baste it, and then bam, I'll go crow eating because frankly, I that's great if the Cowboys can do that. I just don't think that that's real.
Crow's delicious this time of year. And we eat a lot of it this time of year. It'll tell me two things. What if the Cowboys win, it'll tell me two things. One, the Eagles' offensive concerns, the concerns that I have with the Eagles' offense are real. Because that means that they're not able to go toe to toe with this Dallas Cowboys offense. That means that the Eagles' defense isn't good enough week over week over week to allow the offense to score 10 to 13 to 16 points. The defense isn't good enough to overcome an offense that struggles to score. It means that the Eagles' offensive play calling that we have, all of us have critiqued all season long, like those are real, true concerns about an Eagles offensive identity that feels like a question mark week over week. So one, it'll tell me that the Eagles' offensive concerns are real and they could show themselves in the playoffs against, a more high octane offense like we have in the Dallas Cowboys. The second thing that it'll show me is maybe, like just maybe, the Cowboys could seriously go on a run to make the postseason. Like maybe, just maybe. You look at the Cowboys' upcoming schedule. They have the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Lions. That's an insane run over the next couple of weeks. So if they're able to beat the Eagles, then I could talk myself into the Cowboys winning a game either against the Chiefs or the Lions. Like they could win 2 out of those next 3. Then they get the Vikings, the Chargers, the Commanders, and the Giants. If the Cowboys can beat the Eagles and one of the Chiefs and the Lions, they can win out in that last 4-game stretch. And I think that's what the Cowboys are going to have to do to make the playoffs is win, 6 out of their next 7? So if they beat the Eagles, they're on the right track to do that. Now, I think that would be very lofty. I think that is overly ambitious, but I could start to talk myself into the path that the Cowboys have to find themselves in the postseason.
This is where, though, we sit back and say, oh, man, the Cowboys offense is so hard to stop. And I don't disagree with that. So is the Lions. And I know it was outside. It's in Philly, cold weather. Jared Goff didn't handle it well. He didn't throw well. Whatever the reasoning is that we want to put behind it, the Lions just played the Eagles and put up 9 points, right? Like this Eagles defense, and let's see, Pickens is a cheat code as the second wide receiver. He's really a 1. I think Pickens has been so incredible this year that I don't want to take anything away from the way they have structured this offense. But man, as hot as Pickens is playing right now, I still got a secondary in Philadelphia that mostly I trust. Their second corner could use some upgrade, but they do a really nice job of the back end of that secondary trying to figure out how to mask that. I hear everybody say, hey, but what about the Cowboys offense? My counter to that is, do I really believe that the Cowboys offense has some sort of cheat code built into it that the Lions offense doesn't? And I just watched the Lions look human against the Eagles. That's how good this Eagles defense is. And at some point this year in the NFL, we're going to have to accept that the best of the best, the teams that absolutely look like they are true Super Bowl contenders, are not defined by their offense. They're defined by their defense. And if I'm defining the best by the best defensively, I'm going to have to put, Caroline, the Eagles at or near the top of that conversation. Like, given the fact that explosive offenses aren't winning at the same rate this year, I will trust defense. I will trust the Eagles.
Well, and I think it's easier to trust the Eagles defense in terms of consistency because you just bring up the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, they put up 17 points against the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, how can I consistently trust this offense week over week over week to put up the 35 to 40 points that would be necessary to win a game the way that this Cowboys defense is constructed? Because I'm not totally sold on the addition of Quinnen Williams upgrading this defense so much that Dak Prescott doesn't have to be Superman, or at least a semblance of Superman, week over week. But this Eagles defense has been the more consistent, has been the more reliable unit. Like if you ask me, hey, you have $1 million to bet on either the Eagles defense or the Cowboys offense, I think you would be crazy to bet on the Cowboys offense over the Philadelphia Eagles defense.
I guess for me with the Cowboys, I'm just in such a wait and see mode because frankly, Mike Tyson is not the boxer he once was. But if Mike Tyson walked into the ring today and happened to be fighting me, he'd kick my ass. And it would be quick and it would be one hit and I'd probably be dead, right? And then the day after they'd say, oh, Tyson's back. No, he's not. He was fighting me. Of course he did that. I think at some point we have to acknowledge that I'm not sure we learned anything about the Cowboys last week. What we learned is that their opponent didn't belong in the boxing ring. And that's just that's going to be the thing that hinders me. I want to see the Cowboys come out and show it against the Eagles. And if they do, then they'll start to get the respect they deserve. Either way, they're part of the conversation, which is what Jerry wants. But they'll get the respect they deserve if they win.
If the Cowboys win, will you be more impressed with the Cowboys or more concerned with the Eagles?
More impressed with the Cowboys because the only way they win is if they out-execute that defense. So I think I'm concerned with the Eagles' offense a little bit, yes, in the grand scheme of things. But if that defense gets solved by the Cowboys, then, man, that is impressive to me in the way that they're doing business, especially with Shadi.
I think that's fair. I think we cannot talk about the Eagles in the way that we've been talking about the Eagles and being a legitimate Super Bowl contender, the best team in the NFL, that defense being a Super Bowl caliber defense, possibly even the best in the NFL, and then not give the Cowboys their flowers that they deserve if they don't. But it would be a real fear. I think it would be a real concern about that Eagles offense.
Well, either I'll be eating crow Monday morning or I'll be swaggy walking right up to this microphone. All right, coming up, they are walking swaggy in New York. The Knicks, wild night in Dallas. We'll tell you about it next. New York versus Dallas came down to the wire tonight. Shamit with back-to-back triples. PJ Washington brings Dallas within one. Brunson puts New York up 2, and then they get the defensive stop. It was absolutely incredible to see that. And, of course, you got reaction from Knicks fans and supporters everywhere. Offensive foul, Knicks win. That comes from CP, the Fanchise, who's going to be joining us in just a few minutes. I'll admit, Caroline, when I saw it in real time, I said, there's no way. That is such a you-know-what call. I hated it. And then immediately they gave me the broadcast angle that shows the arm sort of clipped around me. It's a good call. It's just a stupid way to watch a game end. Like, it's a blatant wraparound, as you see. Stupid way to watch a game end. But what a win for the Knicks. Oh, and we've got CP, the Fanchise, going to join us right now, man. We saw your Kurt Angle tweet to it. Give me your reaction to that last night as you watched that whole thing finish.
Confusion, because when I was watching that last play, my eyes was on that baseline referee, and he clearly signaled an offensive foul. But the fans in the American Airlines arena went ballistic, and on the MSG broadcast, the announcers thought that Dallas and Brandon Williams had converted on an and one. So it was confusing at one point, but once things settled, hey, that was a brave call by that baseline referee in crunch time situation to make the call, but it was the right call. It was a wraparound on Landry Shamet, and we just got to respect the call and move on. But for the Knicks, they certainly survived what could have been a nightmare loss.
Survive is right. And look, a win is a win, and you will take a win in any form that it comes in. But this is the Knicks' first road win of the season, and it was a close one against a struggling Dallas Mavericks team. I don't want to rain on the parade the morning after a win, but why have the Knicks struggled so much this season on the road?
Yeah, as it relates to last night, I mean, they were atrocious shooting, especially from the free throw line. I mean, they shot 54% from the free throw line, missing 16 free throws. You just can't do that, especially on the road, and expect to get a win. This is the NBA, and yes, the Dallas Mavericks were shorthanded, but you have to respect the opponent, and that is by executing in all three facets of the game. The Knicks shot 14% from three in the first half, and yes, they came back in the second half and shot the ball better, but ultimately their defense and their three-point defense continues to be an issue carrying over from last year. When things collapse for the Knicks as it relates to their perimeter defense and forces that defense into rotations, that left Dallas with wide open three-pointers. And Max Christie, who's the Mavericks' best three-point shooter from the corners, I mean, he shot 3 of 6 from downtown, but he could have easily hit about 3 more. So the Knicks were fortunate there that he missed some wide open looks from 3. Mike Brown met with the media after the win yesterday and said, hey, that defense has to get it together. And so I think that's been a big issue for the Knicks. It was also a big issue for them in their loss against the Miami Heat on Monday.
CP, educate me, man. Like, because for years I've been trying to figure this out. Like in Major League Baseball, every park is different, right? In the NFL, the where the play clock is different. Like there's so many differences that make nuanced differences to how it feels. I understand because I've looked so much into this. Like elevation can make a difference the way the ball carries for the NBA. I get it. I don't like that's not an issue in Dallas. Why can some teams just not find the bottom of the net on the road when every single court is the exact same? I cannot figure it out.
It's super interesting, man. It's just the make or miss league. That's what I chalk it up to. I look at Jalen Brunson, a tale of two halves for him. He comes back from the ankle injury in the first half. He was rusty. Didn't seem like he had much explosion off of his ankle, but from the mid-second quarter on into the second half, he got into his rhythm. And when he gets it going, there's not too many in the league that can stop him. Jalen Brunson with his 27 points really, put the Knicks on his back and saved him from embarrassment for sure.
So you bring up Jalen Brunson, he comes back from the ankle injury, ends up having a big night. What does he need to do? And who does he need to be in order for the Knicks to ultimately get to where they want to go this season?
Really just be himself. I mean, this is the reigning NBA Clutch Player of the Year, a 2-time All-Star now, the reigning Eastern Conference starting point guard. No disrespect to Cade Cunningham. He's having a fantastic season. But right now, Jalen Brunson, he's playing at an all-time level. And coming into the season, there was a lot of talk about how well he was going to adjust in Mike Brown's offense. Well, you're looking at it right now. He's doing just fine. He has the ball in his hands a little bit less. His time of possession on the ball is a little bit lower than it was last year. Nothing dramatic, but in the end, the Knicks offense is running and they're getting versatility out of their offense. And in the end, when you have to go to him in crunch time situations, he delivers 9 times out of 10 for this team. And so, look, defensively, he has a lot of warts that the Knicks are going to have to cover up. One of the ways that they can do that is making sure that they stagger his minutes with Karl-Anthony Towns' minutes and making sure that you don't have 2 of your weakest defenders out on the court for a majority of the game. And so making sure that they can surround those guys with quality defenders, especially at the point of attack, what I just mentioned earlier, that is the way that you can get the best out of Jalen Brunson, because offensively, he's going to bring it. It's on the defensive side that they have to figure out how to protect him.
So let's talk about expectations then, because you've got a superstar player. You went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, but you fired your head coach. So What are the realistic expectations for the Knicks this season?
Championship or bust, or finals or bust, I would say. Finals or bust. I mean, OKC, they're looking like a juggernaut right now. But when I look at the East, it's wide open right now. And yes, hey, give Detroit their credit. They are playing outstanding basketball right now, and they still have some guys that need to come back from injury. You know, Cleveland is hovering around there. They've been trying to deal with the Darius Garland injury. Orlando, who the Knicks will see on Saturday, they've been improving after a slow start. And so, yes, there is some competition there in the East, but I don't see a team right now that the Knicks typically or really have to fear. The only thing they have to fear is the injury bug. They have to be healthy when it matters most, which is in April, May, and beyond. They have OG Anunoby now, who's nursing a hamstring injury. That's pretty typical for him. But for the Knicks, it's getting Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson, and especially OG Anunoby healthy for when the season ends. And I think it's theirs to lose in terms of winning the East.
You say championship or bust. And look, I think that's totally fair and totally valid based off of the Knicks team that we saw last season. But what's the or bust? Does that mean, if they don't make the finals, if they don't win a championship, what, do they move on from Mike Brown after year one? Is it going to be a total roster overhaul? What does the quote unquote or bust look like if we're going to look ahead, 6-7 months into the future?
Yeah, I think if they're not able to make it to the finals this season, would be classified as a disappointment. I mean, they were 2 games away from the finals last year. They fired Tom Thibodeau with the focus on winning a championship. And so if they fall short of even getting there, then I think you would have to classify this season as a disaster. And once these 82 games and beyond are over with, we're going to know exactly who this Knicks team is. And once Leon Rose and Worldwide West, once that contingent gets together and figures out what were some of the positives, what were some of the negatives, look, you're going to hear the Giannis trade rumors. You're going to hear those rumblings again. Is this the final piece here to finally take the Knicks over the hump? I think they're going to need to take the whole season and postseason and evaluate everything as far as the roster is constructed, how well the pieces are complementing each other on the offensive defensive end, and whether or not, if Giannis becomes available and if the Knicks, who would have an outside shot anyway, if they were formidable, a trade partner for the Bucks, if that's the final piece for them to make, it'd be tricky. It's certainly a tricky move.
CP, you mentioned Tibbs. We're all trying to figure out what this Knicks team looks like. What's the biggest difference you've seen so far under Mike Brown versus what we saw under Tibbs?
The versatility of the offense. Their ball movement is much different under Mike Brown. You're seeing there's a number of games this season already, early season, where you're having 5, 6, 7 Knicks in double figures. And the way that Mike Brown is utilizing his bench, guys like Jordan Clarkson, Miles McBride, Josh Hart, who started last year. Mike Brown has the luxury of bringing Josh Hart off the bench this year. So his bench is stronger, but he's also leaning on those guys a little bit to give him some quality minutes. He's extended his bench to 9.5 guys as he's promised. And look at the guy like a Landry Shamet, one of the heroes of last night's game, and also Friday night in their win over the Miami Heat in an NBA Cup matchup. Landry Shamet with 36 points off the Knicks bench. You weren't seeing that under Tom Thibodeau last year. He did not have trust in that bench. And in some respects, I don't necessarily blame him. The quality of players just were not there. If you look at it, guys like Precious Achiuwa and Cam Payne, like those guys are not even in the league right now. So, and in some respects, you can't blame Tom Thibodeau, but in others, Mike Brown has come in and kind of filled in those gaps. And I think lastly, he's coming in with the reputation of being more of a player's coach. Whenever you make a coaching change, yes, you want to make sure that that coach can take you over the hump schematically on one end of the floor or the other, but also the next coach typically is opposite the other when it comes to personalities. Tom Thibodeau known to be more of a rigid figure, not necessarily hated or anything like that. Those guys certainly had a lot of respect for him. He built a solid foundation here in New York over the last 5 years, but Mike Brown is coming in more approachable, as the players themselves have admitted. Mikal Bridges has spoke highly of Mike Brown, and last year it seems like him and Tom Thibodeau were not really on the same page. And so those are the 3 areas where I think Mike Brown is a little bit different than Tom Thibodeau.
And, if Mike Brown and this Knicks team want to go the distance and achieve really what the expectations for this team are, I mean, Karl-Anthony Towns has to be a big part of that. but he's in a bit of a 3-point shooting slump, shooting just 32% from beyond the arc. What does Karl Anthony Towns need to do? What do the Knicks need from Cat?
Yeah, the best shooting big man in the league, as he dubs himself. I think it's got to start with him finding better shots. I mean, listen, sometimes when he takes those 40-footers, you're amazed. You're like, oh, my goodness, how could he hit that? But other times, if he's out of a rhythm, those shots are not the best shots. And for Karl Anthony Towns, what a lot of people want to see is him mixing up his shot diet, getting more into a flow, into a rhythm by attacking the basket. Most nights, Karl Anthony Towns is going to be at a matchup advantage based on his size and physicality. So what you don't want to see is him just relying on his perimeter shot to break through slumps. So that is on Karl Anthony Towns to establish his position in the post. Jalen Brunson to feed him the ball. I think we're seeing a bit more potent connection between these two guys as of late, and also Mike Brown to put him in the best positions to succeed. But also for Karl Anthony Towns, just as it is with Jalen Brunson, defensively, Mike Brown has to figure out what is the best lineups and rotations to get the most out of Karl Anthony Towns, where you're not as exposed defensively. One of the things that Mike Brown has done is starting Mitchell Robinson alongside of Karl Anthony Towns. We've also seen the Knicks run a zone on Friday night, especially on last Friday in their NBA Cup matchup against the Miami Heat. He's running a 2-3 zone to help limit some of that dribble penetration and help cover up some of those warts. And so there's no doubt Karl Anthony Towns is going to be needed for the Knicks to have any sort of championship caliber hopes. But this is just kind of the confounding player that he is. Some nights he's all NBA, he's all world, and other nights you're left scratching your head if this is the same player that you saw in previous games.
Well, he's not consistent. You are, my friend. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Great work as always. Congratulations on your incredible rise and your incredible career covering this team. We're all big fans of what you do. We appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us, giving us Knicks insights. When the Knicks are in the finals, you got to come out and hang out with us again.
Hey, anytime you guys need me, give me a call. I love what Yahoo Sports is doing. I got to shout out my guys, Ariel Hawani and Kevin O'Connor. They're doing a great job as well. And continued success to you guys.
Oh, thank you so much. Follow him on social media at CP the Fanchise. Check him out across SiriusXM and at WFAN. He's everywhere. He's everywhere. We appreciate his time and his insights on the Knicks. All right, coming up, we got plenty more to get to, including it's Thursday. You know that means trap games done the way only this show can do trap games. It's a Thirst Trap Thursday. Look at this. We got an electric board game opening for Thirst Trap Thursday. That's wild. See, we got rid of Star Wars because Caroline never sees it. This is what we do every Thursday. We give you a trap game.
I
right?
know this game though. I know
Go ahead,
Mousetrap. It's a great game.
I'm lost. I don't know Mousetrap. I've never played Mousetrap. See, so like
What?
Doug went from. Well, I'm old. When did Mousetrap come out? I don't know.
I don't know. I just remember playing it, like as a kid, early 2000s. Peak board game years, I feel like.
Yeah.
Maybe just my peak board game years.
A
personally.
working adult at that point. Okay. All right. So here's what we do. We pick a game each that could be a trap game, but we present it to you in a way that you'll never forget, and it'll be seared into your brains because there's always a brilliant Photoshop done by the guys to support it. Caroline Fenton, I give you the board first. The board. See what I did? The board game. You can decide first.
Thank you.
What's your first thirst trap game?
My first thirst trap game, Oklahoma gets trapped by the Missouri Tigers just a week after taking down Alabama, and that is incredible.
What is that hat? What is that hat? And like a weird
Isn't
tan
that the
line?
trophy for the Missouri-Oklahoma game?
Is that what I should know these things? I don't,
it
but I
not?
love the hat. Like I'll go with it.
Let's
If you
not
just said it
forget,
definitively, I would have agreed.
This is an old Big 12 rivalry.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Way back in the days of when Missouri and Oklahoma and Texas were all in the Big 12 and Texas A&M were all in the Big 12. This was a rivalry back in the day. So, I always say that rivalry games can't be trap games, but it's different. It doesn't feel the same as, a new SEC rivalry. And I think it's a classic trap game to be coming off of a massive win like Oklahoma did last week, taking down Alabama. And classic trap game since Missouri will have their backup quarterback, their starting quarterback, Bo Pribula, might come back in this game, but Matt Zoller is their backup, expected to get the start, a true freshman. So it has all of the makings, all of the DNA of a classic trap game. Maybe Oklahoma, they're looking at how high they're ranked in the college football playoff rankings, how high they are coming off of that win over Alabama. They can say, Missouri, they've got a backup quarterback. We're not worried about them. But I think this could be a classic trap game because one, Missouri could bring in Bo Pribula. That Eli Drinkwitz is not shutting down the possibility that we might see Bo Pribula back in this game. Maybe not starting, but at least in some form or fashion. And look, I know Oklahoma's rush defense is one of the best in the country. Statistically, they're ranked 4th best in the country, not even in the SEC, but in the country in rush defense. That's how Missouri wants to win games, is running the football. I mean, Ahmad Hardy last week ran for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. 300 yards for a running back last week. So he's obviously not going to get 300 yards against this Oklahoma defense, but he is going to get his. So is Ahmad Hardy going to do enough? And can Bo Pribula maybe throw enough of a wrench into this game? Maybe come in the second half and be the savior? Oklahoma's defense, their pass defense, isn't prepared for Bo Pribula. Are we going to see this Missouri offense piece together just enough and make just few enough mistakes? Because that's how Oklahoma has been winning a lot of games, is great field position, capitalizing off of turnovers, so on and so forth. Missouri, if they don't make those mistakes, and if they're able to piece enough together offensively, I think they're able to pull off the upset against Oklahoma. They're brought back down to earth after beating the Crimson Tide.
I love that. I'll remind everybody too, Missouri has 3 losses. One was a field goal loss to Alabama. One was a touchdown loss to Vandy. Both are really competitive games. And then they got mollywopped by Texas A&M. Yeah. I think we're going to find out a lot of teams get mollywopped by Texas A&M. So they're
just a good team.
To your point, I actually like that pick a lot. I'll go to the NFL. I like that picture a lot too, by the way. Great work by the team. I'll go to the NFL for my thirst trap game. And I'm going to go to the Bucs, take it on the Rams. The Rams are a big favorite in this one. Give me the thirst trap opportunity. Look, we got McVay. All right, McVay's wearing a shirt. I don't know how I feel about that. Thought he'd go shirtless. But behind McVay, he's got a whole pirate ship.
Is that Carrie Underwood?
People. Yeah, it's Sunday Night Football, so Carrie Underwood just, is she singing a sea
shanty? I like
shanty?
that she's along for the ride.
I think she's singing a sea shanty. Also, I didn't know I could say singing a sea shanty that many times successfully. But yeah, waiting all
be
day
careful
on
with
Sunday
that
night. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm trying not to get fired. And then I love the fact that Sean McVay looks like he's sort of rolling his eyes, not at the picture, but at me directly, saying, you idiot, why would you think trap game? But think of what they just came off of, right? So first and foremost, you got a Bucs team that's beat up. We know the Bucs team is beat up, and it's a Bucs team that, frankly, has underperformed at times. Like, we keep saying the Bucs belong in the conversation, and they keep making it just tough enough for us to keep them in that conversation. Because at the end of the day, they are a banged-up football team that's a little inconsistent, and they make everything look difficult. And I understand that. But the Rams are coming off a huge emotional win over a division rival that sort of took everybody had so much anticipation what we were going to see for Rams Seahawks. I like the opportunity here of just like a team taking a little bit of a sigh of relief. And the point spread on it just bothered me. 7 points feels like a beefy number in this. That's just enough to make me feel like there's disrespect on the line. Plus, Baker can always do Baker things. So I stack all that together, and I get to a very weird, in a weekend that I think is going to be full of blowouts in the NFL. If you give me Baker Mayfield on a Buccaneers team that desperately needs the win to stay in the conversation against a Rams team that's coming off a big win against the Seahawks, I stack up a trap. What say you?
I kind of love that, and I also kind of hate it at the same time because I feel like the Bucs and the Rams have been like my little babies this year. Like, the Bucs have been my team of destiny. I have been pounding my fist on the table all year for the Rams to get their due. I think the Rams are the best team in the league. I think Matthew Stafford deserves to be MVP, which is saying a lot because being from St. Louis, I have a lot of reason to hate the Rams. But I'm still kind of, being the biggest champion for this Rams team. So it does feel a little weird. It feels like my two little children are just squaring off against each other. But I do love this from you because this Bucs team, like you said, you can't count them out. When Baker Mayfield is willing to go one-on-one and just ram into a 280-pound linebacker, you're not going to count Baker Mayfield and this Bucs team out. So I do love this by you. Like, this is, I'm not going to say a must-win game because I think we throw that term around far too much in the NFL and in football and in sports in general. But this does feel like it's put up or shut up time for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, like, the Panthers are nipping at their heels.
And look at their losses for Tampa Bay. Like, it's, again, we keep trying to put Tampa Bay in the conversation. They lost to the Eagles. They lost to the Lions. They lost to the Patriots. They lost to the Bills. They lose to every good team they play, right? And the Rams are a good team. So they do have a win over the Seahawks, right? So a win over the 49ers. They've got a couple sprinkled in there, but they lose to good teams. This game's really important. They've lost 3 of their last 4. Like, the wheels are falling off for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's where I think you're going to get the best of Baker. You get the opportunity for the best of Baker when you are in this situation and you know you are desperate. Now, after this game, the Bucs do have the Cardinals, the Saints, the Falcons, the Panthers, the Dolphins, the Panthers. They have 6 games, many of which could be winnable for them. Let's see what the Panthers look like. But I'm with you. I think this is the sort of game that the Buccaneers sort of they're going to have to prove to the world that they belong in this NFC conversation. Right now, it feels like they should, but the actual proof on the field doesn't actually show us that they're anywhere near these teams. Let's see what they can do with their backs against the wall against the Rams team that maybe is fighting a little bit of complacency. If not, the Rams can find themselves squarely as the 1 seed in the NFC. We'll keep breaking it down. Lots to get to over the course of hour number 2. We are just getting rolling on Yahoo Sports Daily. Coming up, it might be one of the weirdest, worst matchups, but there's absolutely something you have to watch. What if Myles Garrett sets the sack record, considering how bad his team is? We'll break down some numbers you need to know next. Myles Garrett has 15 sacks through 10 games. With 7 games left, he's just 8 sacks away from breaking the single season record held by Michael Strahan. Reggie White and his 21 sacks in 12 games back in 1987, according to Jim, will always be the standard. That's Jim's standard, at least. And like, it's 21 sacks in 12 games. Plenty of greatness from that. Caroline Fenton,
Pretty good
Fitz,
standard.
Yahoo Sports Daily. Yes. We can't do anything about the fact that game numbers change and some players play different amounts of games. This is sort of the running back and wide receiver conversation too. Like, it gets tricky every time somebody's Saquon's out there setting a record. It's like, well, he did it in 17 games. Like, there are certainly, Reggie White only playing 12 games, getting 21 sacks is incredible. But Myles is sitting here with 15 sacks, and he's about to take on this weekend against the Raiders what, again, one, I think, expert told me was the worst offensive line he's ever seen in the NFL. Right, so Myles Garrett could absolutely feast this weekend. And I'm trying to figure out how to make that make sense, Caroline, because I don't know the right context to put around somebody that's going to have, I think, a historic season on a team that is going to end up with the top 3 draft pick. Like, sometimes greatness doesn't equate to wins.
And that's the really difficult thing when we think about Myles Garrett in his legacy, in my opinion, because I think there's 2 different ways to look at that, is like the right now and then the 50 years from now. The right now, like, Myles Garrett is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think that that's crazy to say. I don't think that's any sort of hot take. I feel very confident in saying that Myles Garrett will be a first ballot Hall of Famer and will be forever enshrined in Canton. Point blank, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. What's Myles Garrett's legacy? Like, how will we talk about Myles Garrett 30, 40, 50 years from now? Because when you think about some of the greatest defensive players of all time, going back, decades ago, we think about Reggie White. Reggie White, one of the greatest to ever play the game. Well, he won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. We talk about Lawrence Taylor. He stood the test of time. Well, he won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants. Mean Joe Green won 4 Super Bowls. Ray Lewis won 2 Super Bowls. Bruce Smith never won a Super Bowl, but he went to 4 in Buffalo. Like, we're talking about players, the greatest defensive players of all time that we can still talk about today, all these years later, that I still talk about even when they played it far before I was even alive. We talk about them because they won Super Bowls and they were at the absolute pinnacle of the NFL. Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns are a very far cry from being in the pinnacle of the NFL. Like, we don't talk about the Browns and even being a playoff team. We talk about the Browns of, will they get the number 1 overall pick? So I'm not saying that we'll forget about Myles Garrett and that he won't stand the test of time and that he'll just fall eventually into, I don't want to say irrelevancy, because that's not fair. You can't be a Hall of Famer and be irrelevant, but we won't talk about him maybe in the same breath that we talk about other defensive players, because he won't have that Super Bowl ring, because he won't be remembered as, being part of one of the greatest teams of all time. And that's unfair to Myles Garrett. I'm not saying that to be a slight to Myles Garrett. I think that is totally and completely unfair. But knowing what I know about how we remember individual teams and individual players themselves, having a Super Bowl separates you from the rest of the bunch.
I think Myles Garrett is going to end up being the Barry Sanders of his generation. To your point, Barry Sanders never got there. Calvin Johnson never got there. There are certain players that were just on the Lions during an era where the Lions were never going to win football games. And yeah, Dan Marino got to a Super Bowl, but he never won a Super Bowl. There are certain players that just transcend so much that team accomplishment is something that we almost look at with sympathy. I think in 5 years after he retires, when he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but in 20, 30 years, when people talk about this era, the conversation will be, man, Myles Garrett was one of the best to ever do it. Oh my God. And I can't believe the Browns wasted him year in and year out. The fact that he was a Brown will be used as sort of a badge of honor for what he had to survive in his playing career, as condescending as that sounds to the Cleveland Browns. Much like we look at it and say, man, how in the world did the Detroit Lions have 2 of the best players to ever step on a football field, and both of them retired early rather than continue to play for the Detroit Lions? That's what Myles is going to be. And what's crazy is, you're so right. As you rattle off those names, I think about how transcendent all of those players are. But I had some people do some research for me, and this is crazy to me. 5 players with at least 22 sacks in the season since 1982. None of those teams won 10 or more games. None. Only the 2021 Steelers made the playoffs with a person with 22 sacks or more. In fact, 13 times in history since they started tracking sacks, a player has had 20 or more sacks, and only 6 of those seasons resulted in the playoffs. So I hear you. The greatest of all time are known for their Super Bowls. But the fact is, having a great pass rusher does not equate to success on the field. And I want to say that again. Having a great pass rusher does not equate by himself, does not equate to success on the field. I say that because I want to remind everybody that it's a team sport. Like, we should learn from Myles Garrett and the way we cover edge rushers, and we should apply that to every position, including quarterback. Because what we do is we sit here and say, how many Super Bowls have they won? How many? Like, that's the only thing we want for legacy. Yeah, but it hasn't won a Super Bowl. Like, how many times am I going to have to hear that about Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson? Haven't won a Super Bowl yet. We never say that about Myles Garrett. We never say that about Max Crosby because we understand at that position, one person can't win a Super Bowl. I believe we should understand that at all positions, one person can't win a Super Bowl. And what's wild to me is that having the greatest pass rusher of your generation equals 3 wins, 4 wins. Like, it's just such the roster construction takes an entire team, and you can be Myles Garrett, who deserves a damn statue when he retires, and he's not going to get the wins that his production deserves, and that sucks.
It's kind of like a square and rectangle situation. Like, every square is a rectangle isn't a square, whatever it is. You know what I'm talking about. I feel like having an elite pass rusher, we can see it with Myles Garrett, with Max Crosby, with all of those, players with 22 sacks over the last 10 years. That doesn't equate to wins. We know that, we have seen that is been proven. But also at the same time, can you be a Super Bowl contender without an elite pass rusher? Like, it doesn't need to be Myles Garrett, obviously. We look at the Philadelphia Eagles this past year. Would they win a Super Bowl without having an elite pass rush? Would the Chiefs be the Chiefs without Chris Jones? Because I've seen it. We've seen it with our own 2 eyes. That on days that Patrick Mahomes wasn't Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs defense stepped up. So it's almost like, okay, having one doesn't mean that you're a Super Bowl contender. It can mean that you can be a very far cry from it. But you can't be a Super Bowl contender without one. We've seen that with the Dallas Cowboys.
You're so right, Caroline. And this is why I continue to say, like, over and over and over again, I will use this until I'm blue in the face. Sometimes in life, you got to look in the mirror and admit you're fat, right? And what we want to do is we want to get Ozempic and get unfat, right? We just want to take a pill and get unfat. We want that for our favorite team. So, but the reality of it is it takes a long time and a long process, and it takes a really good roster. Like, you want to know how you have the Kansas City Chiefs or the Philadelphia Eagles? It's not because you have the best pass rusher that year or you have the best quarterback that year. It's because you have the best this, like, it's player after player after player. As Field Yates pointed out a few years ago when the Chiefs were, I think, in their second consecutive Super Bowl, he pointed out that if you look back at 5 straight years of drafts, every single pick that they made in the first, second, and third round was still on the roster and contributing, right? So if the answer isn't Myles Garrett, the answer is Myles Garrett and. Like, for anyone that's ever played an improv game where it's yes and, it's like, all right, if you come to me and you say Myles Garrett, I've got to say Myles Garrett and I've got to follow it up with quarterback, and I've got to follow it up with 3 or 4 really good offensive linemen, and I got to follow it up with some help in the secondary. And it takes 15, 16, 17 really high level quality starters to have a true dynastic football team. And one man can't do it by himself. So you're right. Like, one pass rusher can't win you a Super Bowl, but you can't win a Super Bowl without having a pass rush. But it's all part of a bigger puzzle of roster construction that just gets obnoxious to fans because fans want an answer for immediate success, and that answer doesn't exist.
And I almost think it's doubly impressive, as if Myles Garrett needs to be more impressive than what he already is and has done on the field. Like, that speaks for itself. But I feel like that how impressive that is gets compounded by the fact that he plays for the Cleveland Browns. The fact that Myles Garrett is a household name. The fact that Myles Garrett is a certified superstar and he plays, no offense to Browns fans everywhere, he plays for the Cleveland Browns, a team that is largely known for being much more of a dumpster fire than it is any sort of contender. When you are a Dallas Cowboy or you are a player or a pass rusher or a really good player on a really good team, that makes it so much easier to be, relevant, to be a celebrity, to be a household name. And I almost view Myles Garrett as one of the great what ifs. And I know his career is not done. And I hope for all of our sake, and of course for the Cleveland Browns' sake, and of course for Myles Garrett's sake, that he has a very long career ahead of him. But already I view Myles Garrett as one of the great what ifs in the NFL. Kind of how I view Andrew Luck, right? Like, what if Andrew Luck didn't retire early? What if the Indianapolis Colts put an offensive line in front of Andrew Luck to protect him? Like, that's a great what if in sports. Joe Burrow is kind of turning out to be like a what if in the NFL. Again, I hope he has a very long career ahead of him. Same thing with Myles Garrett. But like, what if Myles Garrett was on a Super Bowl contending team? What if Myles Garrett wasn't on an absolute dumpster fire of an organization in the NFL? What if?
I mean, look at this. Siciliano, you can check out Andrew Siciliano on Inside Coverage with us, points out Myles Garrett passed over by Dolphins linebacker Jordon Brooks for AFC Defensive Player of the Week. Again, Brooks won this despite Garrett's 4 sacks. Brooks won in week 8 when Garrett had 5 sacks. That just speaks to the fact that at some point, Myles Garrett has become like the LeBron of his sport. Like, we become so desensitized to certain great things that we see that we simply get bored as a society. We don't want the same MVP every year. We don't want the same player of the week every year. We normalize greatness when we've seen it from certain individuals, because instead of seeing it as greatness, we just see it as yet another week at the office. And so all of a sudden, Myles Garrett can have 4 sacks in a week and 5 sacks in a week and not win player of the year or player of the week, because we're consistently looking at it and saying, oh yeah, that's just Myles doing Myles things, without acknowledging that there isn't another player in the NFL that would go out, especially with this team and the way it's built. There isn't another team or another player in the NFL that I think would go out and have that level of success. This is not Myles feasting off of the backs of others. This is an entire organization feasting off of the back of Myles. And we just take it for granted. Like, we just look at it and say, yep, that's another week. And look, I think Myles is going to have the biggest game of his entire year this week, and we're still going to normalize it. The only hope that I have is that he gets Defensive Player of the Year, because certainly his level of dominance, that's the hope in the sack record. If he gets the sack record, he gets Defensive Player of the Year, then it stops any conversation of any naysayer anywhere, where people will inevitably take, with the comments on this when it gets clipped off, are going to be, he could have gone somewhere and won. He chose the money. Okay. Like, fine.
That's
he
true.
chose to make money.
That is true.
Like, great. That's not the conversation here. He chose to go make money. Cool. Stop. Great. Good point. Now, how do we appreciate somebody that is absolutely incredible at his craft on a team that sucks? That has nothing to do with his decision to take the money.
And I think that's going to be a conversation that we have to have in this era of football. Elite players on teams that stink. I mean, the Houston Texans, when J.J. Watt played for the Texans, they didn't absolutely stink, but they didn't get to the pinnacle of the NFL. I mean, we had that conversation with J.J. Watt when he was with the Texans and with the Arizona Cardinals, 2 teams that, pretty kind of irrelevant unless they are elite teams. I brought up Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is the same thing. Like, the elite player that plays for an organization that just can't help but get in its own way. But I said earlier, Myles Garrett's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Am I wrong? Does he need to do more in order to be a true first ballot Hall of Famer?
He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he's going to have, I think, the best year of his career. He's going to set the sack record. And according to FPI at ESPN, the Cleveland Browns still have the highest odds at the number 2 overall pick in the draft. So you set all the records, and you get the number 2 pick. All right, we'll keep breaking down what to expect this weekend across the NFL landscape. But coming up next, we got to get back to the NBA. Big news around Anthony Davis. We'll give you some triple threat coming up next. The Mavericks will be listening to trade calls for Anthony Davis, per Shams. The Mavs are moving away from Nico Harrison 3 to 4 year championship window towards finding sustained success around Cooper Flag. Boy, they make that sound so easy. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz, they make that sound absolutely so. You know what? We're just going to move on to this. We're just going to build sustained success around Cooper. It'll be fine. Now, I should point out.
Grant sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Hey, let's just, you know what? We're going to take the rest of the show off, and we're just going to build that plan, and it's going to be just fine. Like, 3 to 4 year plan.
Amazing.
No worries. Fired this guy, build this guy.
I'll collect my $5 million check for that. Thank you.
Oh, wait. We get paid to do that? Oh, that's amazing. We should also point out that The Athletic has reported. Paid to not show up to work. The Athletic reporting Mark Cuban is back involved with the team, but also reports everywhere Mark Cuban does not want to trade Anthony Davis. Now we got Shams saying shortly after that they will take calls for Anthony Davis. I think it's important context here to figure out where reports are coming from. Notably, Shams' report says they'll be exploring his trade value and, quote, health will be the biggest key, right? So that's what Shams is saying. Shams obviously tight with Rich Paul, the agent for Anthony Davis, while you've got Mark Cuban over here that's newly re-involved with the team saying, we're not trading him. So we have conflicting reports. So at this point, knowing what we've heard, here's the statement we're going to give you. Now we're going to triple threat this, which means we're going to shoot it, we're going to pass it, we're going to dribble it. Shoot it means I'm buying it. Pass it means I'm not buying it. Dribble it means I need more time. So here's my statement. There is no chance Anthony Davis gets healthy enough to ever showcase his trade value over a long period of time. What are you doing? Triple threat, shoot, pass, dribble. No chance AD gets healthy enough.
I'll shoot that. I'll half court shoot that. I will, I'll shoot that from the concourse, like one of those, like fan challenge things. Like if you can shoot this from the concourse, you'll win, season tickets for life. Like I'm doing that. Because at this point, I cannot trust Anthony Davis to stay healthy. At this point in his career, that's just who Anthony Davis is. He's 32 years old. He's always banged up. If it's not something, it's another thing. He can't consistently stay on the court. That I cannot, if I'm a GM in the NBA, I can't say, okay, we are just an Anthony Davis away from winning a championship, because I don't think there's a single team in the league that is an Anthony Davis away from winning a championship. Like when he's on, when he's good, or even when he's healthy, he's good. Yes, absolutely. He can be a contributing factor, but that's when, and that's if, and those are very large whens and ifs. I can't count on Anthony Davis to stay healthy. So no, I don't think that he can be that kind of difference for any team in the league. So I will shoot on that Anthony Davis won't ever be healthy enough to showcase his trade value.
I shoot this with the confidence of a person at the gym that just finished wiping down their equipment, and like the hot person that you have a crush on is at the machine next to you, and you've crumpled up the paper towel and you shoot it and you loudly scream Kobe at the top of your lungs, knowing that the entire gym is staring at you and you are now that guy and you're banking on it going in. I shoot with that level of confidence, that level of, oh my God, because I'm out. Like everything for AD. Look, dude, I hope we're wrong, because I want players to play as long as they can possibly play. I love the world of, like, we all sit here and say, hang it up. Look, you played basketball your whole life, AD. You deserve the time to decide when you're not going to play basketball anymore, and I hope you get to play as long as you want to play. But if I ran a team, there's absolutely nothing I would offer another team to acquire you, because I can't bank that you're ever going to be on the court. So I won't give up future assets on something that I can't bank is ever going to be an asset for me. And that's the part of this trade conversation that I think we're getting a little twisted on. Like, sure, the Mavs are going to float out there and see what they can get for him. Of course they will. Now, when they get the calls back and it's like, hey, you can have half a bag of Skittles, 3 half-eaten Starbursts, and these fruit chews over here. That's what we will give you. Will they make a move for the fruit chews? I don't think so. So I'm going to shoot on the fact that it'll take a long period. We're not talking like a week of AD. I'm saying it would take a month of AD coming in and having player of the month type value that everybody turns around and says, okay, now I'm comfortable with him being healthy. I don't see that happening. And even if they get value back for it, I don't see it being reasonable value. So I'm confidently out on this one as I shoot. By the way, I make that shot at the gym, right? Like when I crumple up the paper and throw it away.
Of course.
Thank you.
Yes, every time.
She doesn't believe that at all.
You're
She doesn't believe
at that.
No, I miss it, and then I sheepishly walk up afterwards. I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. And I pick it up off the ground. All right, let's get another one in here.
Something fun today.
Just trying to show off I'm an athlete. All right, let's get another triple threat in here. And this one based on a result from last night. Okay, ready for this? The Rockets 9-1 in their last 10. They win last night against Cleveland 114-104. All right, they get a big win. They have a league-leading offense, top 10 defense. Here's the question. Shoot, pass, or dribble. The Rockets easily have a championship ceiling. What say you?
I'll shoot on that. I will. And that's not me saying that I will shoot on easily the Rockets will win a championship, but their ceiling is a championship ceiling. Yeah, I will shoot on that because first of all, if the Rockets can stay healthy, which they have for majority of this season, okay, cool. That is one check. Kevin Durant is playing at an incredibly high level when he's averaging 26 points a game. When you look at Şengün and what he can do any given night, the fact that Reed Shepherd, I think, is kind of coming into form and throughout the season has gotten better and better, and it's still early. So if Reed Shepherd can continue to build on game over game progress that he's made, I think he can start to be kind of an X factor for them. So I would say, yes, the Rockets on any given night can prove that they do have a championship ceiling. Not that I think they're going to win a championship because I think, it's stacked and they're going to have to get through a lot of really good teams on a path to a championship. But when they're healthy, do they have a championship ceiling? Yes, I will shoot on that.
I'm dribbling. Like that moment where I brought it up the floor and I'm just holding my breath. Like I'm out of breath. I don't want everyone to know I'm out of breath, and I'm just trying to collect myself because what I saw last night was, for a moment, absolute dominance. Like, look, if you were watching social media during this game last night in the first half, it was all about, oh my God, what are the Rockets doing? The Cavs are a joke, blah, 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 blah. And then the second half, all of a sudden we were seeing this could be the second largest comeback in NBA history. Like the number of nuggets that were being the number of little stats that were being put out there that were sort of telling us how historic this was because the Rockets were melting down in front of our very eyes. Now, they get the win, and I'll give them the win all day long. But the one thing I don't think that Oklahoma City does is melt down. The one thing I don't think that the Nuggets are going to do is melt down. And I watched an outmatch, particularly from some size angles. I watched an outmatched team last night lose a basketball game. I don't think the Nuggets or OKC are outmatched. So I'm dribbling this. Like I want to believe, but I'm not ready to go full in on the Rockets' belief yet. I want to get another one in here. All right, I wanted to get another one in here. Hornets rookie, 4th overall pick, Con Knippel, dropped 28 points, 8-7. Hornets lost to the lowly Pacers. Okay, so let's just acknowledge bad. But he's averaging 18 points per game, 40% for three, and fastest player in the NBA history to reach 50 3-pointers made. Knippel's out there shooting. All right, so here's the question. Shoot, pass, or dribble. Con Knippel, the sexiest of the Duke products this season.
Ooh, that's a messy question. And I love that. And I do love me some Con Knippel. And I got to see him up close and personal this past Saturday night when the Oklahoma City Thunder came to town in Charlotte, and I saw Con Knippel go off. We saw Con Knippel go off in his hometown in Milwaukee. Con Knippel now leading all rookies in scoring this year. But I'm going to dribble on that. Because although Cooper Flagg has been less than advertised so far, there is still a very high likelihood that Cooper Flagg is going to start figuring things out and going off. It's only November 20th. And if Cooper's Flagg starts to figure things out, if Cooper Flagg starts to put up those 25, 28, 30-point games, then anything Cooper Flagg does is going to be significantly sexier than any other Duke product, Con Knippel included, because he's Cooper Flagg. Like, Con Knippel can go off for a 30-point game, and it's not going to be the leading story on SportsCenter. If Cooper Flagg does it, it will. So I think just with the Cooper Flagg brand that he carries and being the number 1 overall pick, then I have to say that Cooper Flagg still is the sexier Duke product because anything he does is going to be sexier than anything Con Knippel does. Is that fair? No. But is it real? Yes.
I don't trust the Mavs to not do everything they can to ruin Cooper Flagg right now. And I just see this year where Cooper Flagg is just dangling in the wind while they try and figure it out. And then all of a sudden we're having these conversations about everybody else. Like in a world where VJ Edgecombe and now Con Knippel are suddenly taking over so much of the conversation, I'm going to shoot. Like, it's not a confident shot, but I'm going to shoot it. I'm going to shoot it and say, why not Con Knippel? Even though, frankly, that would require, just look, if that doesn't look like a man that's already played 10 years in the NBA and he's seen some things, I mean, it feels right. This just feels right for this to become the sexier of the Duke products this season. So I'm going to buy in on it mostly because I cannot believe I'm saying this out loud. I trust Charlotte more than I trust the Dallas Mavericks. How about that? Look, there's not a
no Hornets slander will be here on this program.
I'm all in. Look,
like
I'll become a Hornets fan. I'll become a Hornets fan. Look, come down. Maybe you think we could use our show and a little leverage and maybe get courtside at a Hornets game?
Yeah,
you think?
Absolutely. Come on down. You can stay at our house.
Jason Fitz, I'm flying down. We'll sit courtside, but it's got to be on the court.
Perfect.
I don't want the row behind whatever celebs are going to the Hornets game. I want courtside. So if it's not courtside, I'm out. Caroline, start working.
Say it like that.
Well,
you don't think there's all the celebs in Charlotte? Come on.
So not a triple threat, but
Fitz.
Oh yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right, I want you to see this. This was absolutely one of the best moments of the night last night in the NBA. Vucevic, by the way, look at this. We're gonna get this shot coming in from the corner. Absolutely beautiful shot. The game winner on this one, getting it from a couple of different angles. Just a great drive. The pass on that outlet, by the way, was absolutely electric. Vucci Maye gets the big three-peater. Yeah, look at that. It's just absolute beast mode. So look, a great night for him, a great night for the Bulls. I love this. This is a nice moment for Chicago.
Look, the Bulls are one of the most intriguing teams in the association, in my opinion. Are we buying or selling the fact that the Bulls ceiling might be a championship ceiling?
Okay, well, I'm selling that, but I am look, the Bulls are it's a great.
They're intriguing to watch.
It's in the wide open East. Why not Chicago?
That's what I'm saying about the East. Why not Chicago? I think the New York Knicks would have would like to say something about that, but it is wide open. And when you have Vucevic that can make shots like that, when you have Josh Giddey that's been wildly consistent so far, why not the Chicago Bulls? In the East, anything can happen.
I still love that the right basketball play is a drive down the center of the lane and then a dish out to a tall man standing very far from the rim.
To the big man.
And that is the right thing.
Yeah.
That is the right to shoot the three. That's just a beautiful thing. The modern NBA at
Welcome
its
to modern
finest.
day
Right.
NBA.
Oh, and I love every bit of it. Modern day NFL. Suddenly the New England Patriots look like they could be a juggernaut headed back to domination. Tom Curran joins us next. We'll get thoughts on all things New England. The impact that Mike Vrabel has made in Foxborough is palpable. It puts him aside with an elite class of coaches in New England, becoming one of only 6 coaches to ever tally a winning record with the Pats in their first year in charge. It's been that good and it's that fast. And nobody can tell us more about it and more about what's happening right now than Tom Curran, NBC Sports Boston, longtime Patriots insider. Tom, appreciate your time this morning. Full transparency, Caroline and I both, before we were here, both did stints in Nashville. We were both around Vrabel a lot. Like, he's an interesting dude. What has been the key to this turnaround from Mike so quickly?
Well, we could start with the players and the coaching staff and that concrete stuff. Drake Maye being a player who has really elevated, obviously, because I think in large part because of the coaching and the structure that Mike has brought in. But when you bring back the number of experienced coaches that Mike brought back and have a specific plan in place for each player and for each position group, that's going to happen. Plus, if you import talent on the offensive line, which was a non-starter for about 3 or 4 years consecutive. You couldn't even run the offense. So that's one aspect of it. But from your time there, you probably realize that Mike is simultaneously impatient and organized. And he was very impatient in explaining the expectations that he had for this team, what he wanted to see, what he was going to prioritize. And in the past couple of years, and that goes back to Belichick too, the urgency was not present. You know, in 2022, when the Patriots had the offensive coordinator of the week with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge competing in the offseason, there was no urgency to figure out what they were going to do at that position. And as a result, the team was rudderless. 2023, dysfunctional. 2024 was going to kind of be a foundational year for Gerard Mayo. So what Mike has done is he's come in and he's installed an urgency in the players and really a blueprint of here's what we're going to do this year.
Impatient but organized, I think, is a great way to put it. And I think the impatience level for Mike Vrabel probably ratcheted up a lot after losing his job in Tennessee. He wanted to prove that he could still do it. So what I like to do, and we like to do here on the show, is give blame pies and credit pies. Which slice and how big of a slice goes to who for the blame and for the credit. So when we look at the credit pie for the New England Patriots being where they are right now, does Drake Maye or Mike Vrabel get more credit in your eyes?
Covered Mike for his entire New England career, was here before he got here. And we used to do this all the time with Brady and Belichick. And what I ended up concluding was Belichick got the first decade. He got 2000 to 2009. And then Brady got the rest. Brady got 2010 through 2018. He got the credit for that. So to me, I will give a bigger slice to Mike because he is the one who brought in the instructions. There will be a point at which Drake's piece grows and grows and grows because he will develop an understanding of how to do it himself, the same way Tom did, the same way great quarterbacks across the league do, or even really good ones. You can let them fly in their own. But I think right now, I would give more credit to Mike because of the stability he's brought in and putting the player in the best position to succeed. And it's a great player, a player who has excelled way more quickly than I thought. And he's probably at a ceiling that I didn't think that he would perhaps ever attain. And that's nuts to say after 11 games of his second season. But you look at the stats and you're like, how can you be this good this quick?
Well, and to that point, Tom, you know, I talked to somebody that was in Josh McDaniels' offense for years, and they told me, look, for all the years they played in the NFL, they never had anything that was more of a foreign language than McDaniels' offense. It's wildly complicated. So what have we learned about Drake Maye in this process that he's been able to pick up this offense and execute it so efficiently, so quickly?
Yeah, don't judge a book by its cover, I think, to an extent. If you're asking me specifically, personally, what did I learn? Because he's so aw shucks. And he starts every answer with that kind of draw. Yeah, he's friggin'. And I looked at what he did at Carolina, and what impressed me the most about him was not his acumen. What impressed me the most was his mental and physical toughness. But it was a team that went 7-4 in his final year there, his sophomore year. And they staggered down the stretch. And you watched all this. I watched every throw and every run. I said, he's not accurate enough yet. He's a project. He's got skill, but he's going to be a long work process. So obviously his mental acumen is way beyond what I anticipated. And he's not a guy that spends a lot of time in the locker room grab assing with us. He does his business and gets the hell out, which is good. That's preferable if you're a fan. But as a result, I don't know enough about him. I don't know a lot about him. So I'm only going on podium and secondhand recitations of how smart he is, but clearly not a dummy.
Yeah, absolutely not. And you bring up the Tom Brady and Bill Belichick years, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, any New England Patriots quarterback will be compared to Tom Brady. We've seen that with Drake Maye. I've seen all the edits on TikTok. I've seen all the conversation on Twitter. So I'll ask you, in your opinion, are the Drake Maye comparisons to Tom Brady a fair comparison?
Sure, I think every single quarterback in the league should be compared to Tom Brady, because Tom Brady, in so many respects, is the 100 level of something. So how much does that player fill the 100 level? Drake has already got, certainly more athleticism and speed. I don't think he's physically tougher than Brady. I don't think I've ever seen anyone physically tougher than Brady. And if you're wondering why I say that, just roll back one of those Tom Brady hits tapes and watch the absolute thrashing that he took. Maybe he will be, but I think that you should always compare those guys to Brady everywhere, whether it's Stafford, whether it's Flacco, whether it's Burrow, whether it's Josh Allen. But to me, I think those are physical attributes we would compare. What kind of work ethic does a player bring would be another one. What kind of competitor are you? How do you play in the stretch? How quickly do you calm the game down? And that to me was something I thought Drake would struggle with, was calming the game down, because he did not do a good job of it in 2024, nor did he do it really well, believe it or not, in the offseason and the first 3 games of the year. And then it did. So God bless him. But yeah, I think they're all fair. Do you guys think they're fair? I think they're fair.
I think when you've had unparalleled success, it's hard not to have unparalleled success in that same jersey constantly be talked about. But that, Tom, like, to me, brings me to sort of like what cloud is over the organization, if any, now based on the greatness of before. Like, it just feels like, is it tough for this group of guys to go out and just be this group of guys when they're in Patriots jerseys, considering what the last group of guys did?
It's a great question, and Vrabel did an awesome job answering that a couple of weeks ago, because he goes, what history? We won 4 games the last 2 years. What are you talking about? And he's right. They've sucked. They've been an embarrassment. They had no dismount for Brady. Bill really was so detached and really just checked out on how to make sure that he stayed at the top of the league in terms of draft and free agency and player evaluation and planning, that they turned into one of the worst teams in the league. So their history, it's like being a Knicks fan or something like that and talking about the Willis Reed years. I mean, you can equate it that way. And I know it's more recent, or like a Cowboys fan, I'm looking back at 1993 and saying, tradition, come on.
I can hear Mike Vrabel saying that in his voice in a very dismissive
good
tone. I've heard that diction before from a Mike Vrabel press conference. You mentioned that Bill Belichick, you thought he was checked out. You really think that Bill Belichick had kind of just checked out from this Patriots team?
I think that Bill, when I say checked out, I think his intensity level at the age of 70 was not what it was at the age of 50. And I think if you look at the decision to move on from Brady, if you look at the free agent acquisitions, for instance, after 2021, and 2021 was no bed of roses, but trades for Devontae Parker, moving on from Jacoby Myers to bring in Juju Smith-Schuster, the drafts, the second round picks and the first round picks that were horrendous, the no plan for an offensive coordinator in the second year of Mac Jones. When Mac was perceived to be disloyal in Bill's eyes, he was basically in 2023 exiled, and Bill didn't talk to him anymore. That to me is is not somebody who's putting winning at all costs at the forefront of their priority list. So, I mean, you could say, okay, well, everybody's going to go through a down period. But this was a down period that wasn't caused by happenstance and bad luck. It was really bad management. And as a result, that's why I said I use the words checked out, and I guess I should tailor it to checked out from the things that had made the Patriots so good.
With that in mind, Tom, we as a society spend so much time outside the buildings talking about Bill and the Patriots, and we ask both sides about it all the time. You're around the organization constantly. Do the Patriots still feel any sort of weight from Bill Belichick at this point on their end? Because we certainly have Bill constantly answering questions about it. Where are the Patriots on the Bill side of it?
No, he doesn't. No, the Patriots have really moved on. And I remember, there was a story a couple of weeks ago when Bill was taking on water a little bit at North Carolina, and it was reported, I don't know if it's Diana Rossini, I think, might have mentioned that, the Bills camp thinks that the negativity is coming from Foxborough. The negative stories are coming from Foxborough, and just, they're not. They've moved on. I don't know if they necessarily say, go get him, Bill. I hope you win a national championship down there. But I don't think they wish him ill. I'm sure there's some schadenfreude and people are like, but they're not actively wishing him ill. He would be welcome back here as opposed to what he contended was the case. I'm sure that, and I don't know this, but just knowing Kraft as I've known him for a while, nothing would make him more happy than Bill Belichick to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm coming up this weekend. He's not exiled. Bill isn't. Kraft, as an octogenarian, would love to be able to bury hatchets. And certainly Robert likes a photo op. He'd love the photo op of him and Bill arms around each other and all's fine. So they have moved on. I think that if you bring them up, there are emotions that are, summoned, but on a day-to-day basis, there's no shadow.
It's no mystery that Bill Belichick's been struggling in the PR department, whether it's coaching at North Carolina or everything with Jordon Hudson off the field, the CBS interview. We all know it. I don't have to go through all of it. Do you think people within the Patriots organization and Patriots fans themselves almost find some sort of satisfaction in the way that Bill Belichick's reputation has changed, for lack of a better word?
No, I don't. I don't think people, no, I don't think people take any satisfaction from it. I think the first reaction is, this really sucks. That's too bad. There might be people who say, well, it wasn't good at the end here, and this is just an outgrowth of it. But I don't think people take satisfaction from it. I mean, like I was saying, I covered him for 24 seasons. I had great relationships with him for a long time until I didn't. I sat in probably hundreds and hundreds of press conferences and asked him thousands of questions. And while by the end I was writing, party's over, it's not working, I don't take any satisfaction in seeing somebody who really, I derived a lot of personal success in my profession because of the work that he laid. I don't feel like, personally, and who cares what a reporter thinks, but personally, I don't derive satisfaction from seeing this guy who was held in such high esteem and succeeded at such a high level to be chopped off at the knees and made the butt of a joke.
Tom, we care about the opinion of a reporter, particularly yours. We appreciate you hanging out. Everybody follow him on Twitter at Tom E. Curran or X or whatever we're calling it these days. Check him out, NBC Sports Boston, as always. Tom, your insight's brilliant. It's truly helpful to get the picture of what's happening in the organization, and we appreciate your time, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
Thank you, Tom.
Great stuff from Tom, and it's interesting to see. That being said, Bill Belichick was in the news for something kind of funny. We'll tell you about it next. Welcome back to Yahoo Sports Daily. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz. Page 6 out here covering Bill Belichick, 73, supporting his girlfriend, Jordon Hudson, 24, at her cheerleading competition. This has sparked all sorts of reaction, Caroline, because frankly, a lot of people taking a look at it and saying that's what, like Bill doesn't look particularly happy to be there. This is the version of Bill that we're used to. No, I mean, that's exactly it. Like, it's amusing. It's bizarre. I don't know. Is it cute? I'm not trying to figure it out. Like, I don't know what the right thing is here. I just think this is just a wild statement to where we are today.
Yeah, what a world we live in. And shocker, something that Jordon, if you will, and Bill Belichick do has been viral on social media. But allow me to maybe to have the unpopular opinion based off of what I've seen on Twitter. This is like the least offensive thing that Jordon Hudson has done since Bill Belichick took over as the head coach of North Carolina. Like, I take offense to the fact that she's calling herself the CEO of Belichick Productions, that she is, posting private emails on Instagram, that she's talking to Bill Belichick on the sidelines. Like, all of these things I think are wrong and bad and are a bad look for both her and Belichick and the North Carolina football program. But this is Jordon Hudson wanting to relive her glory days. Can't fault a girl for wanting to do that as somebody who just came back from her college town. This is Bill Belichick who's coming to support his girlfriend in something that she is passionate about. Like, oh, breaking news, Bill Belichick's a good and supportive boyfriend. Like, oh, God forbid a girl have a hobby. Like, there's a lot of things that I take offense to and a lot of things I do not agree with those two. This, albeit not my cup of tea, I'm not going to yuck anyone's yum. I don't have an issue with this. Go off, Jordon Hudson. I hope you have a very successful adult cheerleading career.
So this is what, look, my algorithm's going to be so jacked for a long time because I went down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out what life looks like for adult cheerleaders. I can't believe I just said that statement out loud. And it turns out that there's a new pro cheer league that has come out, like literally 4 professional teams. They're literally a cheer league presented by Varsity Spirit, and no freebies here, Varsity Spirit. But Pro Cheer is the league, and they have 4 teams in different cities. They're going to do round robin tournaments, and there's cash and training and facilities and all these things. And I was kind of dumbfounded. Look, this is not my personal cup of tea to be in a pro cheerleading league or a co-ed cheerleading league as an adult, but also I have friends that play in competitive kickball leagues that travel all over the country to play kickball. The Ocho has been started on ESPN specifically to highlight weird sports things that adults do, sometimes for rec, sometimes for money. At the end of the day, if we're being honest, Bill's just being a good boyfriend. It's weird to all of us to say Bill is being a good boyfriend, but my God, any guy or girl in a relationship knows that there are times that your significant other is into something you just don't get, but you still go to support because that's what you do when you're in a relationship. Any of us have gone through plenty of moments where you sit down, like how many times have most of us had to tell your friends, like, yeah, I'm going to go to, like for so many people, that's real. Like I've made people in my life go to so many music things that are just awful. Like I get it. So at some point I look at all of this and say, look, he's a boyfriend at his girlfriend's cheer competition. A lot of people have run with that as some sort of weirdness. You run with it as weird if you already don't like their relationship. And I understand why a lot of people don't. But at the end of the day, while it looks like grandpa supporting his granddaughter, realistically, this is boyfriend supporting his girlfriend. And if they're okay with that and comfortable with that, I'm not going to yuck their yum.
Well, grandpa supporting his granddaughter is maybe the typical age gap, but just not in this case. And look, we know it. She's young. He's old. We know that. It's weird, in my opinion. It's not changing anytime soon. So, to your point, like the number of times I've had to be like, yay, congratulations, Dylan, on your college football playoff in the college football video game. Yeah, yay. So proud of you. Like the number of times I've had to act like I care. You do that for people that you love.
Dylan has made the play. Like, so you're telling me Dylan and I haven't played EA yet against you? Come on, like this feels like this is where
you're play together.
Got to make
as
this
long
happen.
As you don't play as Ohio State, because he's got an issue. He always plays against Ohio State.
Nobody can beat Ohio State. nobody can beat Ohio State in that game. It's impossible. Like, they made it a cheat code. Ohio State unbeatable. Dance moms. Like, the tweets on this are really the funniest part of it. Like, the thought of Bill Belichick being a dance mom in this. But look, like, the
He's
other
a
part of
pageant
it,
mom.
like, you know what I
Do you
think?
think he's in the front
drives
being
people-
like, "Go Jordan"?
Oh my God. Like, I used to
Smile,
love the TV show Dance
Jordan.
Moms. I'm not gonna, yeah, he's like toddlers and tiaras. Look, you know what most people really hate about this is that they can't get under their skin. Like, honestly, Jordon doesn't give a damn what any of us have to say about her relationship. She doesn't give a damn what any of us have to say about whether or not she's a gold digger. She doesn't give a damn about what any of us think. And she showed it on Twitter. I mean, Pablo Torre has obviously had wild success reporting on some of the Bill Belichick items. And Pablo Torre has been named one of the best shows and best episodes of 2025 by Apple Podcasts. Deservedly so, by the way. Pablo doing great work and great reporting all the time. But Jordon had something to say about that because she certainly got reactivated on Twitter just in time to say, "You're welcome." But honestly, I kind of love this. Like, this is Jordan Hudson saying, "I don't care what you think." And people can yell and scream all day long about how weird the relationship is. And she's saying, "I don't care." They're walking red carpets. They're taking photos together. They're on the beach doing weird poses together because they don't care. And I think what bothers so many people in this process is they don't understand the relationship. The relationship feels gross, but most importantly, they're out here in the streets flaunting it because they don't give a damn what any of us think, which is at some level kind of beautiful. I'm not going to lie. Like, to have that level of, I know what you think, you know what you think, and I don't care what you think, you can't get under my skin, is beautiful.
I kind of admire it. Now, I don't admire everything about this, but I do admire that. I think back to, I got my first on-air job when I was 23 years old. So Jordan Hudson's 24. So when I was like just getting into radio, just getting into being on air, just getting into being like in just a fraction of the public eye that Jordan Hudson and Bill Belichick are in. If there was one person on Twitter that called me like dumb or stupid, it would ruin my entire week. I would want to just curl up in a ball in the corner and cry and feel bad about myself because, you're young and you're just figuring it out and your confidence isn't very high. Jordan Hudson being 24 years old and literally the entire internet hating her and making fun of her and poking holes in every single thing that she does, even if it is an adult cheerleading competition, like, she doesn't care. And so to be that young and have such an IDGAF attitude, it's something that you kind of have to be 24 and dating a 75-year-old. But I do admire that. Like, I do admire that about her. The fact that she's going to trademark the term gold digger so she can print it on necklaces and she can just, see the dollar signs in her eyes and not care what anybody has to say about it or what anybody thinks about her. I do admire that in a way. I feel like the Jordan Hudson hate has gone so far that I feel like we're almost all, like going back to the mean here. Like, we're all kind of rejecting the Jordan Hudson hate because it is so widespread.
Caroline, I was in a band that never made it, but we toured some. We just never made it. We never put a song out that most of the world heard. And we opened back like years ago. This is years ago. I was in my probably mid late 20s. We opened on a run of shows for Brad Paisley before Brad was anybody, like before I eventually opened for Brad a lot. And I'll never forget Spartanburg, South Carolina was the first show that a reviewer was ever there. And the next day we got the paper because we were so excited. And he proceeded for paragraphs to just trash my band. And then I remember so distinctly, he said the fiddle player was more worried about running around on stage like a bear on a bike than he was actually doing anything musical. I named my publishing company Bear on a Bike for the longest time because it bothered me. To this day, I just every time somebody says we don't have the right to critique people in what we do, I always say, yeah, like nobody ever says that about music reviewers because some dumbass in Spartanburg, South Carolina called me a bear on a bike. So I look at Jordan Davis and say, I wish I had the awareness at her age to turn around and be like, yeah, say what you want to say. I'm going to go home with Bill Belichick and I don't really care. And he's going to come to my cheer competitions because that's what good boyfriends do. Even if it's weird to use the word boyfriend with somebody that's old enough to be my grandpa, like that is just a level of weird to me to make, I can't make it make sense, but I kind of respect you. Right. I'm coming around. I'm suddenly pro team. I'm team love. I'm team Bill and Jordon.
I'm not quite there. I am not Team Bill and Jordon. I do think about some of the very hardworking people in the North Carolina football program that have had to deal with all of the stuff that has come from them unnecessarily. But I will give credit where credit is due. Jordon, good luck in your next cheer competition.
I hope we
Support your
cover it
sister.
on this show. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. I promise. No adult cheerleading. Maybe. Come back, hang out with us.